Psionics and craft. This is becoming more and more talked about in the community. Myself, many others have been talking about this for years. There's many way before myself talking about this. So we're talking about an ability here that one is plugged into what I could describe as the mainframe of God's mind to some extent. The analogy I'll use is that the universe is the wireless internet, the cloud. This is a computer that we're using as a vessel to experience this channel that we're resonating with. And we could say that the soul is the operating software to an extent. And I'm sure that I'll even change that model in future as I delve further into this. But I've been using that as an analogy for quite some time. And when you look at that perspective of the software within the cloud, these are the cells. The soul is the cell of God's body, and it's all working in unison. Now, there is this capability that I and many have experienced where through thought, you can interface with technology, direct the technology, merge with the technology, and this is used, the technology I'm talking about, with craft vehicles, machines. There are aspects where, let's say with an extraterrestrial vehicle, where it is grown. Now, how it's grown can be done in various ways, but what I'll go into here is that there is a DNA component for who is the pilot in some cases. That machine or vehicle cannot be used to traverse space, time, do whatever it can do in terms of the capabilities, because it's much more than what I'm describing already. But only the person whose DNA is embedded part of that vehicle can use it. Now, it can also give permission through we could say AI. In some way, I've got to describe this. It's actually got a capability in these vehicles to where the pilot can extend their consciousness and be merging with it. And it can even somewhat be having its own personality, meaning the vehicle, the machine. And these are safety mechanisms also, just like with advanced technology of weaponry that could be used for weaponry. These things can't be used to harm another with a number of safety protocols and steps that need to be gone through. And one of them is it's got to be part of your makeup or have directives to be able to be used for what it's being used for. So it's got to be part of the pilot. Now, there is cases that there are humans, not just Earth-based, but extraterrestrial and other intelligences, that their consciousness is so far evolved that they can override and merge with these crafts and redirect them, destroy them, even play tricks within the consciousness component of the craft or the electronics. Because as you're going through this, these crafts do have somewhat even low-level AI that's more evolved than our AI, let's say that. With that said, though, when you get to a certain level of consciousness, you will peak if you're doing things that are harming or tricksterish to others. You've also got the component that some of these intelligences are that far evolved, and I'm mainly talking now about angelic, celestial intelligences and ascended beings, to where they do not need a vehicle. Now, we are talking about stages of individually or as a collective, a group collective. You can, through the chariot throne Merkaba, which are two opposing tetrahedrons, create a group collective Merkaba that can appear as whatever it wants to be, meaning the mandate that the group agrees to for it to appear as, because you're working in unison as one consciousness, but also you can be an individual being that, as I've talked about before, you go from the Merkaba, you turn into rainbow light, you merge with source, you reappear as rainbow light, then the Merkaba, and to others it could be just you've traversed space and time, you're appearing in another world, and you're a ball of light flying around, unbeknownst to the people that are seeing it, unless you're directly interfacing with them, that it's a being in their chariot throne, and that's what sometimes is occurring. Now, the psionics aspect is being talked about more and more, and there's a lot of stuff going into that people are being trafficked because they're a psionic asset or potential psionic asset. The talk as well about machines being brought down that are operated by other worldly intelligences, and people asking, well, how's that capable when we're talking about other forms of life out there that are supposed to be more evolved than us? How can their technology be overridden? Well, that's where I was partly describing that if you're got an ability with consciousness, you can do things like this. It doesn't matter what. But there is the case that some people are bringing these crafts in, and then other psionic assets that are working for not even the government, it's beyond that, are psychically spying on other psionic assets and then informing those parties that they're involved with and working for, and sometimes, we could say in a lot of cases unwillingly, they'll inform the party that they're working for, and they will be monitoring these psionic assets and when vehicles come in and try to down them as well. So this is a very layered thing, but it's just evolved psychic gifts. That's all it is, that these types of people, including myself, have gifts and abilities in specific areas. And as I've always talked about, it's working out what your spiritual gift is and using that as your main tool in your toolbox. The others are available. And this is predominantly through thought, feeling, and knowingness, visions, whether it's in the mind's eye or you may be able to see more into the light spectrum. And there's various types of technologies out there being used, and I've been talking about photon technology, to where not only can this technology be used in terms to harm, or we could say hinder other people and trying to work on and diminish the light structure. Because what we're saying here is a materialization of light. Light goes into matter, and it can be interchangeable. I've always talked about consciousness being awareness, which goes into a vibratorial state, which is sound. Sound creates light, light creates matter, and all of them are interchangeable. But with that as well, if we look at things from the photon perspective, you've got the light body. And I've shown this in a presentation before, to where David Wilcock in a presentation was showing I think it was in a Polish university, a scientist that took the first photo of a photon, and it looked like the Knights Templar cross, but when it's inverted, it's the Merkaba. And so you've got other forms of technologies that are working with light that can be used for, like anything, positive means and negative means. But there is other forms of technology out there, not just scalar technology, that are used on people, and with even extraterrestrial vehicles, they've got access to scalar type tech, photon type tech, to where in some cases with crafts, what they're using it for is not to mask the craft, but to mask the craft being seen by other people. And that's why sometimes some people can see a craft, others don't. Not all cases, I'm just saying that's an example of how that tech can be used. But the biggest tech of all that I always talk about is what? It's coming back to connecting with the heart, the core of you. It's a physical manifestation of the light body. The core of the light body is the heart space. And when we're in the heart, we tap into that 0 point, we tap into our own field, and we can also merge with source, to where this is how these cities, these abilities, these masters are able to operate, making the technologies that I'm speaking about obsolete and useless. Now, we've got our own evolutionary process, and it doesn't mean these technologies aren't great and what have you, and there's replicators that can, like Star Trek basically, bring into manifest anything that you want to an extent. There's also, we hear about the med beds and all these different things as well, which various forms of technologies of the medical type exist as well that I'm aware of. But the thing is to master ourselves. And some people just naturally have these psionic gifts and abilities. And some of these people get burnt out in operations. And some people are being used that with the situation of psionic assets. They're being used to where you get enough psionic assets together thinking negative outcomes towards a specific person or a certain thing or an event. That can be brought into manifest as well. Just like the good can be. And so it's not all bad out there, but it's not all good either at the moment. And life is never going to be 100%, but the imperfections is the perfections. It's just the controlling and wanting to have things manifest in a certain way that can make one upset, unsatisfied in the outcomes that are brought into being. Intention is key with any of this, that the abilities of the psionic is an example of human potentiality. And that's one of the things at the forefront of myself and Jaya Sanctuary that I'm focusing on is human potentiality, whether it's with levitation, telekinesis, psychic abilities, working with whatever of the clair senses, remote viewing. This is a natural ability that, from my understanding and information, if our brain was operating at 100%, all this would be child's play. And because our brains are operating, some say at 5 to 7%, we're operating with where we are with what we've got. But with great abilities comes great responsibility as well. And so going through this chaotic phase before we hit a harmony phase, individually and as a collective, and depending on which new octave you could say you're going to start resonating with and operating on, depends on what's unlocked. But the mysteries that seem like mysteries are not mysteries in the mind of God as we merge back with that one consciousness we're all a part of, where we all are loved, where we all come from and go back to and unite. The fact of the matter is when you go back to that state, can you say that you did the best that you can with not just the spiritual journey, though all of it is, but just purely being human? Because in being human, we already have intuition. We feel love. We create. And this is why it's the school of all schools, because we're going into a state of amnesia, of forgetting our true nature, with the illusion of separation and being individual. Yet there are those that understand that we're in an ocean and we're a drop of that ocean. And when you merge with that, while still identifying with the I and having a balance in between the two, amazing things are capable to come into manifest. Food for thought as always. And thank you for watching.